Hello, this is Paul Saunders, the president of the Center for the National Interest. Thank you for joining me again for the Three Questions podcast. I'm really pleased today to be again with my colleague, Jacob Heilbrunn, who is editor of the magazine The National Interest and also a longtime observer of politics, domestic and foreign, and particularly an observer of the UK. And since President Trump is just leaving the United Kingdom as we're speaking after a state visit there, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk to Jacob and get his impressions on the visit. So that's what we'll do today. And Jacob, thank you very much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
So my first question for you is, what do you think was the biggest news from the president's second state visit? And it's been kind of widely advertised as the second state visit, since that's a little bit unusual. What do you think is the biggest news from the trip?
There was a technology partnership agreement that Trump and Prime Minister Starmer signed today on Thursday, which they say will ensure that the United States and Great Britain can be world leaders on artificial intelligence and high-tech innovation. Tied to the visit of President Trump was that Microsoft, Blackstone, OpenAI have declared that they will invest over $200 billion during the next decade. And British companies have said that they will in turn invest in the US. It's good for both Trump and Starmer. The British economy has been, let's face it, faltering since Brexit. And Trump is particularly keen to show that foreign investment is taking place in the United States. And of particular interest to you, probably, Paul, will be that they agreed that they would construct more nuclear plants in Great Britain. So they seem to agree on nuclear energy.
You guessed right. I noticed. I'm very pleased.
Now, what I found worrisome, to take the implicit other half of your question, is that President Trump is upping the ante when it comes to dealing with the media in the United States. I believe he declared at the press conference that the coverage of him is too negative on television shows and that licenses need to be yanked from these stations. So he is moving in the route of trying to control, for whatever it's worth, the big ABC, CBS, and NBC and CNN.
Being on our topic here of visit, do you think it was a success for Trump?
Yes, though, he likes the stagecraft. He clearly enjoyed himself, and people underestimate I think the psychic bond that he feels with Great Britain, not just because he has the golf course in Scotland, but also his mother comes from Scotland. And he seems to have some kind of a bond with
a special relationship.
With a special relationship with King Charles, actually. And I think the visit was a success. Unfortunately, the British, their main goal was to try and lower tariffs. And Trump is not budging on the tariffs. And it shows the extent to which tariffs have become a inviolable principle for him. It's not just that he wields them as a weapon. He thinks that having high tariffs is good for the American economy.
All I can say there is that we are engaged in a very large social science experiment, and we will all learn whether or not he's right. But thank you for that. I guess, sorry, I didn't mean if you meant to continue after the tariff point. I don't want to stop your answering on whether or not you think it was a success.
No, I do think the visit overall, in terms of optics, was a success. And I think for Starmer, it was a success to be able to host Trump, someone who is not on his political wavelength, and have an agreeable visit. And Trump didn't, made some praised Starmer at points. And Trump and Starmer is obviously thinking about whenever the next election comes, he faces a challenge from Nigel Farage, the head of the Reform UK party and the Tory party, and his own popularity ratings are extremely low. So it was good for him to be able to host Trump.
Last question. The president, while he was in the UK, he made really a variety of different foreign policy statements. There was, clearly a difference between the US and the UK on Gaza and what's going on there. He expressed Trump some public disappointment again in Russian President Vladimir Putin over the sort of lack of progress in Trump's quest for a peaceful settlement there. He made an offhand comment about talking to the Taliban government in Afghanistan about regaining access to the Bagram air base that the U.S. left behind when President Biden withdrew our forces following the agreement that President Trump and his team negotiated during his first term. And, in the process of doing that, mentioned that it was like an hour away from where China manufactures its nuclear weapons. And then I guess finally he said that, he thought the British Prime Minister should really order the British military to control their borders. There was really kind of a lot going on, and that's sort of a lot to unpack. But, I'd be interested in your perspectives on some or all of those points.
Well, Paul, that's quite a mouthful. So if I
Yeah, no,
miss
I
something,
know. I guess I made it
no.
like 6 or 7 questions podcast instead of the 3 questions podcast. I'm sorry.
If I miss something, you can interject. The first 2 points that I would make are that differences emerged between Starmer and Trump over Israel and the Gaza Strip and over Russia and Ukraine. Now, Trump said that Russian President Vladimir Putin has let him down, and that's as far as he was willing to go, where Starmer pointed out that Putin has been much more aggressive since he met with Trump for a summit meeting in Alaska. He has been steadily bombing Ukraine, sending in drones, including into Poland, and attacking EU facilities in Kiev, targeting the British. So Starmer took a very tough line on Russia. Trump did not. Then there's a decided difference as well about Israel and the Gaza Strip. The British and the continental powers in Europe have been talking about recognizing a Palestinian state. The Trump administration is opposed to that. And the Europeans do not want the Israelis to continue their ground offensive in the Gaza Strip. Another point of contention between Trump and Starmer. Though Starmer was careful not to let any of this escalate into an actual argument with Trump. Now, when it comes to the Bagram airfield near Kabul, which we left in 2021, Trump said, we're trying to get it back because they need things from us. Now, he didn't say what those things are. And it would be interesting to know what the negotiations are. Obviously, Trump, as you pointed out, also said that the airbase is, quote, an hour away from where China makes its nuclear weapons, unquote. I presume that is meant to convey a threat to Beijing. Now, I would just say the problem with those kinds of threats is that, to me, they're pretty empty. Unless Trump is intent on World War III, which he has shown no intention of desiring to provoke, the Bagram airfield is not going to be a launching base for attacking China. Be a reckless move.
It kind of seems like it would make it somewhat less exciting for the Taliban to negotiate an agreement giving the U.S. access to that base if they thought that it was going to be a launching pad for attacks on China's nuclear weapons program.
Well, the other thing is, of course, that the Chinese are investing in Afghanistan because of the mineral wealth there. So, no, there's no chance that we're going to be able to play the Taliban off against China, much less that we were going to be able to separate Russia from China, as some in the Trump administration had hoped. The fact is that the United States only has so much to offer, and we're in a world now where, unfortunately, China often looks like a more attractive partner to a number of powers around the world, whether it's in Africa or in Russia or even in Latin America, where the Chinese have been investing heavily than the United States. I fear that the United States has sort of been coasting on its past accomplishments and is taking things for granted right now.
That sounds like a good topic for 3 questions to some of our China expert friends.
Definitely.
And a very important issue. So I'll give that some thought in the coming days and weeks here, and maybe we can bring something to our listeners on that one. So Jacob, thank you very much for very thoughtful perspective on the visit and for taking time to be on the podcast. Really, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Paul.